Almost every conversation I have about somebody's workplace, the word toxic being mentioned. That is really a very sad commentary on today's workplace. Now, I'm not sure if it's just become common to use that phrase or if people truly mean it's toxic. But I do sense one thing, a sense of malaise, a sense of nothing is in my control. And I am such a big proponent of believe in yourself and believe that there's a lot that you can control. It really comes from deep inside. I believe in nurturing and cultivating your emotional intelligence. And one of the things I realize people feel their workplaces are toxic is because of some silly, or maybe not so silly, ongoing conflict. Why do we allow conflicts to fester? It takes a little bit of self knowledge, know thyself, to really overcome unnecessary conflicts, which really should have been addressed a long time ago, because it takes away the essence of who you are. It's really psychic weight that's it's like an anchor, it drags you down instead of letting you float freely in being who you are. So let's address at least one aspect of that's bogging you down, some ongoing conflict. One, obviously, think about who you are, what you want, what you don't want, and write down. Honestly, it takes journaling, it takes writing down an excavation of your soul, your spirit, to figure out who you really are. What are your values? What makes you happy, right? And happiness is a big deal. And what ongoing conflicts do, they take away, one is your capacity to be productive because you're losing regular opportunities for collaboration. The other thing could be is you're ruining relationships, and if your goal was initially to preserve a relationship, and if you feel like sadly that's not the case anymore, that's where we need to ensure we preserve relationships. And maintaining relationships is so critical to show your whole impact, to be that person who is always sought after in terms of solutions to big corporate problems. And more than that, think of your happier workplace. And an ongoing conflict is not going to keep you happy. So if your motivation is better productivity, better collaboration, preserving relationships, growing your connections, and a happier workplace, you have to get very mindful of why conflicts happen in the first place. Now, if if we are not very intentional and we just walk into conversations, even benign ones, seemingly, that then flare up because we were not intentional, why are we saying what we are saying, right? So it takes a little bit of awareness, intentionality. So you're a little guarded. I don't want you to be too guarded, but a little guarded in the workplace to make sure you're not stepping on toes. You understand people's motivation. So that's why emotional intelligence, from a perspective of self awareness, social awareness. What is it that the other person wants? What is motivating them? What are their triggers? It's essential to get to know people. Knowing your audience is essential. And then the goal should always be I need to build connections. Why? Because that increases your capacity to influence. But when we are not paying attention, when we are on autopilot, what happens is we do dumb things. We really cause our own problems. So when you start, and this is where another thing that emotional intelligence helps you with is paying attention. Be present in the moment. If you start noticing a shift happening in somebody's body language, they don't look very happy with what they just heard, pay attention to micro expressions. There's something there for you. And you got to know right then and there how to let that heated moment subside, to kind of retreat a little bit. And you will notice that you don't get into unnecessary squabbles. Really, it's not necessary, right? So always pay attention. Secondly, help people talk. Let them share their information on a particular idea. Having this pool of shared meaning is so essential. Sometimes we jump the gun that how we see something is how somebody else sees it. And sadly, that's not the case. There's truly something called subjective realities. People see things from their own perspectives and from their own self interest, to say. Now, let's talk about so you're aware. And secondly, if you know you're going into a high stakes conversation, ask yourself, or maybe not even walking into a high stakes conversation, maybe right where you are. This is an innocent conversation that seems to get heated up. You should decide at that point, um, do I want to be right here or do I want to be happy? You could pick, every conversation cannot be that important. You can't be winning everything. It's not a zero sum game. It's okay to say this connection is more important to me than winning this argument today. Pick your battles, right? So that's something you can do. Now, in terms of high stakes conversations, follow the three gates, right? One is, before you share anything, think about, what am I saying? Am I saying something that's accurate? Is it right? Is it correct? Have you evaluated what you're saying from a full 360? So make sure what I'm saying, is it right? Is it accurate? Is it kind? Think about it. What I'm saying is, am I pointing to somebody's character or is it related to a task, right? Be very careful that you're not accusing somebody from a character perspective, because everybody has this desire to be perceived as decent human beings. So be very careful not to use broad generalizations like you always or you never. Think about that. And the third gateway is, um, be kind. Is it necessary? Whatever you're bringing up, right, in the big scheme of things, in the scheme of your own career aspirations and what you want, is this conversation even necessary? What if this particular topic, if somebody slipped up on something, is it necessary to raise it? Is it even going to help in any way? If you're going to strain a relationship, think twice about bringing up anything and everything. Some things just have to be ignored. They cannot all be equally important. Now, if it's something related to a project, a task, an idea, and you want people's buy in, it's a very different story. But anyway, remember the three gates. Is it accurate? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And you can really avoid getting into too many conflicts at work. Once you do get into a conflict, think about how much damage it's doing, right? If you wake up in the morning and the first thing you think about this ongoing conflict at work, somebody's irritated with you, somebody doesn't want to speak with you, they don't invite you to meetings, there is some conflict between roles, role ambiguity in a corporate world is so common. One of the reasons for conflicts, there's an unclear division on who does what, right? And we step onto each other's lanes and it just blows up. But so there are two ways to look at it. If you are in an ongoing conflict and it's causing you stress, it's causing you pain, every work day you're like walking on eggshells because this person is in the same meeting. So I used to do this. If I felt that I may have accidentally annoyed somebody, if it's a little smaller issue, not a big issue, I may even pretend that the conflict doesn't exist. Like, even if I know the person is annoyed at me, I would say things like, I would actually compliment the person in a group setting, thank them for something, and then suddenly they're confused. Like, wait, aren't we supposed to be mad at each other? Like, why are you praising me and why are you letting me speak and why are you giving me the kudos in a group setting? I think that kind of a gift goes a long way. And that's for smaller issues. But if it's a bigger issue, right? You got to take time to evaluate three steps. Now, what are the three steps? One is, know what you want. If you want somebody's buy-in into an idea and this conflict is kind of a blockade, you're not getting ahead, it's a roadblock, you got to think about, how do I get them to say yes? But at the same time, remember, in conflicts, it's not just about you getting your way. It's not about you winning. It's about also preserving relationships. Now, Say you had a disagreement, say 2 weeks earlier in a meeting, but you want to bring this up again because this particular idea is so important for future success. Like, especially if you're, say, a project manager and you're trying to ensure people comply. So think about how you're going to approach this. What is your goal? Have a clear clarity on what is it that you want. Obviously, whatever you want, you should also balance it with how do I also preserve the relationship without just, railroading somebody. You have to think about how best to approach this to get my way and to also preserve the relationship. And I'll come to this a little later. The second thing is, sometimes if we are not deep into our own awareness, again going back to emotional intelligence, think about, how do I see this from another lens, right? So if you are so buried in your own myopic vision of the problem, I would say zoom out, get a bigger perspective and think, where are they coming from? What is the counterparty's argument here? What is their position? Why are they saying this? How is their reality so different? So sometimes even zooming out and reframing helps you see, oh, I have my way, they have their way. Could there be a third way, a fourth way, a fifth way? Sometimes we think there is a polarity of options, but there could be actually multiple options. And maybe you find the middle way. This is not a some ugly compromise, but it could be useful a useful middle ground where you could come to. So this is why walk challenge your assumptions is what I'm saying here from a changing your perspective. The third one is really don't take things personally. Now remember, I had mentioned if you're watching people, look for micro expressions, see if their tone has changed. That's good for you. But for you to preserve peace and happiness in the workplace, don't take everything personally. As I tell my clients sometimes, don't be a baby, right? But think of it this way: why am when you know what you want is a happier workday, you want a productive outcome, tell yourself, I'm going to only listen to the content, being objective. I'm not going to focus on, oh, their tone was terrible, their body language told me so much. And I'll tell you one thing, uh, everybody by now should know this. When you have people from different cultures, you will start noticing that tone of voice sometimes is misleading. As an immigrant, I can tell you, if somebody is speaking to you in a very direct way and not in a sweet, soft, sugar coated way, they're not doing it because they have something against you. That's how they were raised, right? So don't read too much into tone of voice. Be a little bit more objective. Just listen to the content and don't take things personally. Often when people say what they say, it's related to a task, it's related to something. It's not about you, it's about something in your realm of responsibilities. So keep these three things in mind: know what you want, have clarity on your goals. But the essence is not just clarity on your goals, but you got to also preserve a relationship. Second, reframe from cognitive perspective, see it from a different lens. Third, think about, how can I listen to somebody very objectively without taking it personally. Don't fall for the non-verbals and get fixated on that. Once you do that, here's a trick: you can use something from negotiation while you're resolving. If you really want your way, uh, ask for a bigger ask, make it a bigger ask. And when they come back and say, well, that's not possible, then you can lower your ask. And I tell you, that's when they most likely will reciprocate. It's all a part of the influence theory. And I think you may get your way, but you have to walk things carefully, understand that people have emotions and feelings, and you have to become the more self aware and socially aware person to succeed. After, of course, it's not everything I've told you today will help you resolve every issue. There are some issues that may not pan out. And it's okay to say, I'm okay. I'm comfortable with that. This person may not be willing to give you an inch. And in some cases, you should just be okay with it. But please don't dwell on it and don't ruin your happiness.